Hi, I'm Heather with the Sound Mind Collective, where we believe in activism through education. Welcome back. We are in the middle of a series I'm doing speaking directly to white people about the things we can think about, the things we can say, the things we should stop saying in this conversation that's happening with this push of the civil rights movement. If you like content like this and want to see more videos, be sure to like and subscribe because we have plenty more to come. Today, we're going to be talking about how white people have a tendency to change the subject when it comes to issues surrounding race and race relations. And I want to show you some ways that that happens so that you can be sure not to do it. White people have a tendency to change the subject when it comes to issues surrounding race, racism, race relations, all things race related, right? So I want to point out 5 things that happen very frequently, and I see them happen in person and online, and want you to think about if you're doing it and ask you to please stop. These things that I'm talking about here in just a minute are problems in conversation because what it does is it shuts down the conversation. It sets you up as an expert, usually about a topic that's not even the topic being discussed. It puts the spotlight on yourself instead of the person who's posting or who's speaking or the topic that's being covered. And it also has a tendency to come across as incredibly disrespectful and very rude. Let's get right into it. So, one of the first ways that I see that white people have a tendency to change the subject is what I call deflecting. And it sounds a lot like this. Someone makes a post or makes a comment in person about something that they are bothered about. For instance, the recent murder of George Floyd. We all saw it. It was horrific. It's a problem. White people will often come into that conversation, whether online or in person, and come with the intent to change the subject or perhaps minimize what's happened, or even worse, justify why this was appropriate. It sounds like this. We can't talk about this kind of issue that happens between police and black people until we talk about black on black crime. Black on black crime is not a thing. Take it out of your vocabulary. And if you insist that black on black crime is a thing, I'm going to need you to also make sure that you put into your vocabulary white on white crime. Because crime is just crime. And usually, crime that happens in the neighborhoods and the communities that you live in, which in America, unfortunately, tends to be packed full of people who look just like you. Stop saying it. The second thing people like to do is bring up a long rap sheet of whatever the person did that we're talking about back in their history, how maybe they had criminal activity, how possibly they did XYZ when they were in high school, or how maybe they just looked very scary. None of this is beneficial. It's all incredibly rude and disrespectful. And I would like to ask you, if you had a loved one who passed away from a disease, be it cancer or COVID or something else, and someone showed up at their funeral and said, "Well, it's sad, but I remember back in those days when me and Jenny would do cocaine in high school. We tried it a few times, and I think she cheated on her husband. And by the way, she left one of her kids at the mall one time and forgot them. So sorry that she died, but sounds kind of stupid, right?" That's what it sounds like when you are justifying the deaths that are happening and the violence that is a real part of the Black community from people in leadership and authority positions. You would never say that to someone in real life. You would never say that to someone who's experiencing grief. Why do you have the need to come on and do it when we're talking about race? Stop it. The next one is generalizing and distorting the message by saying things like, "Well, the Black Lives Matter movement is a Marxist movement. I read it online." Most of the time, when people use hashtag BLM or Black Lives Matter, they mean simply that: Black Lives Matter. They're not always referencing the organization, but even if they are, if they've said it or it's on their post online, you can keep scrolling without putting your 2 cents in. And by saying that Black Lives Matter is a Marxist movement, what you've done is put the spotlight on yourself, made it about you, made you the authority, and silenced the voices of those who need to be heard. The reality is this: Black lives matter. They do. And we are going to keep saying it until that shows up in our everyday lives and in the real reality. Number 3, saying things like, "If you support Black Lives Matter, then you hate the police. Tired of this rhetoric, I support the Black Lives Matter movement, and I'm not anti police. I believe there needs to be a lot of reform done, but the majority of American citizens in this country agree with me on that. So when you come in and say that if I'm using a hashtag, or if I say Black Lives Matter, or if I go to a protest for Black Lives Matter, that I'm anti police, that once again shuts down the conversation, puts you in the spotlight, and allows us to not go any further in the communication that we could have had. Stop doing it. Fourth, saying racism isn't real because you don't see it. That is hysterical to me. If you live in this white skin and you are trying to tell someone who lives in brown or black skin that racism doesn't exist because you don't see it, I've got to believe that you're pranking me. You've got to be joking, right? Because you can't experience something if it doesn't pertain to you, but you can see it if you pay attention. So you saying it doesn't exist because you don't see it means you're not paying attention, you're uneducated, you sound a little racist, and we've got a problem. Stop saying it. The last one is attacking the person who's speaking or posting. This is a real fun one that I see, especially on news articles or videos that have to do with anything national news wise. Immediately, if someone says something about Black Lives Matter, an army of white people come into the comments and say how all of those people are snowflakes and libtards. They're stupid, the country's going to hell, and oh, by the way, fill in the blanks. Are you kidding me right now? I'm assuming because you're here and you're white that you want to learn something. And you might not be that ignorant or that rude to put those things online or say them in person. But somebody's saying it because I see it everywhere. So if this is you, if you've ever done it or you've thought it, you need to address in your brain why that's happened. I want to know what your intention is. Why is it that your brain thought it would be a good idea to call another human being a name? Also, fun little fact, you don't have to be a liberal to support Black Lives Matter. This is not a political statement. This is a human rights issue. And if that rubs you the wrong way, you need to dig deep and figure out why. This is not the right versus the left. This is humanity as a whole fighting against a system of oppression that white people have put onto an entire race of people that we brought to our country to enslave. So, one more time, my challenge to you is today is a little high energy and a little intense, but we had a lot to cover. You need to figure out what's your intention with all these comments. Why are you putting it there? Because I tell you what, none of these lead to a good thing. You're not going to learn anything, you're not going to make any friends, and you're not going to make any connections. Number two, figure out if you've ever said any one of these things or if you've ever thought any one of these things. Because if you have, then we have a problem and you've got work to do. Come comment to me, send me an email, ask me questions. I don't mind. Don't ask a black or a brown person. They're tired of dealing with this garbage. Come to me. Third, stop saying and doing those things on social media and in real life. If you don't agree with me, you don't have to agree with me, but I'm asking you, person to person, stop doing it. You're creating harm, you're hurting people's hearts and souls, and you're not setting up a good example for your children who you would probably tell, we don't want you to be a bully. Think about those things. So that's all I've got for you today. I'm going to cut it off for now, and we're going to come back next week with another episode of how we are going to handle this, what we're going to say, what we're not going to say, and how to engage in this conversation right now in this civil rights movement. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. Hit that bell so you can see when new stuff comes on, and I will talk to you soon.